a leader? Can everyone be a leader? So today we're going to actually jump in and think about it in a couple of different dimensions. So Roxana will focus on what we see as people leaders in organizations on that perspective. And I'll be sharing on my perspective, the individual. And we're going to hone in on the employee and also contractors. You know, what does that look like when it comes to leading? So we're going to jump in and explore this very interesting topic out there. Just wanted to share, I read an article today. Somebody in my LinkedIn feed was talking about a JP Morgan post that they had about what leaders were that they interviewed for 2021 and what the outlook was. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them were focusing on resiliency and learning and development. I was interested, of course, I honed in on, and I'm sure you would have honed in on, was the people and culture part of that. And I know that they were advertising their risk and assessment product and service package in this JP Morgan article. However, I was able to kind of dive in and look beyond that and started to question is how do you create a resilient culture, right? That we know that people are really going to drive new processes, new practices, and tools that you put in place for 2021. Somebody has to drive those, right? Somebody has to make them be realized. And so I think this is a really good topic that we chose today, just from reading that article this morning. What are your thoughts, Roxana?
Well, I think, and I think we've seen this, and that's why it's such a huge topic, especially now, because we've seen how culture can make or break the business, and how people challenges are business challenges, because what we've gone through in 2020 is exactly this. It's seeing how people can adapt and how fast they can adapt to the changing environment and to uncertainty, and getting to live with that kind of uncertainty and work with it. And I think bottom line is that people and culture, as we call it now, that became so important. And it was an important part of the business. It wasn't a nice to have anymore. It was a must have, and it is a must have. Because if you, and we're talking about resilience, a culture of resilience, I think it all boils down to trust, and how you can build that trust as an organization. And it's down to each individual to build it. And this is why I absolutely love this topic today, because I think, yes, absolutely, everybody is a leader. And now more than ever, it's not just about the leader who's there at the top and then they're there leading others all the time, and they're isolated and alone and frustrated. It's not about that anymore. It's about who can take the helm when, depending on the situation. Because again, we hire people for what they can do, and then do we actually trust them enough that they can take the lead in situations that, ironically, we hired them for? And now, do we trust them to lead in those situations? Or what is there that's missing and that we need to start building more of?
And trust is extremely important. Oh, there's some echoing happening here. And for me, looking at the perspective of individuals, I remove any hierarchical organization structure. I am a people leader. I manage people. I like to work with people, just helping them as an individual learn who they are as a leader, and remove any of those limiting beliefs that impact them to go after to create that new version of themselves and to be successful in life and career. Where me sharing some of my experiences when I became an independent consultant for all those 5 years and being in the independent contractor world, it's extremely important for all of you that are out there functioning in that capacity, to start thinking about what type of leader you are. And it doesn't have to necessarily be the same way. There's different ways to lead. And one of the things that I love is coactive leadership. Any of you that have not read that book, I recommend pick it up, buy it. You can even Google coactive leadership, where it talks about the different ways, right? And one of them is within. And so when we talk about leading, it really starts within yourself. Is how are you leading yourself? How are you believing in yourself? How are you trusting that you do have all the answers? And so when we get back to every individual employee, or if you're a contractor, are you trusting the things that you do, or you're waiting for someone to tell you that you're doing a good job? And when you are an independent contractor, one of the things I think is good business sense, and this is something that I have had conversations when I was an agile coach, is if you're paying for somebody externally to help, wouldn't you want to eliminate all the unnecessary things that you have to do to try when you're with your employees, that they already have these innate characteristics and abilities? And one of them is leadership qualities. Because the last thing you want to do is have to teach that for a contractor. It should make your life easier. And so some of you that are looking for contingent workers to offset your budgeting for this year, because in that JP and Morgan, sales were going to go up. And you know how I say year of 2021 is a year of thriving, right? Start being a little bit more particular in the people that you're bringing into your company and making sure that they have those particular characteristics. Now let's turn it. I am a middle management, like manager. I am a particular person that is hiring. What do I do with somebody that's not an employee? What does that look like? Let's explore that.
With somebody who's not employed, as in, like, I need a contractor, you mean, and I need a consultant for my business or for my organization.
And how do you treat that relationship? What do you do if we're trying to teach middle management to be coaches and mentors? What does that look like if they're not an employee? I think that's a really good conversation for us to kind of explore, because they don't have management review, or not management reviews, but employee performance reviews, right? Those don't exist. They don't go through the same process as employees. I mean, I'm not going to lie, that is one of the things that I loved about not being an employee anymore, in truth. But I did care about feedback. And we're learning that performance reviews are really performance feedback in employees. So what would that look like, right? And I'm kind of like seeding this a little bit, is if I am a middle manager, what do I do? How do I treat them the same but differently based on my HR constraints is my question.
Yeah. Well, I think there are ways in which we can, again, it all goes down to culture and how what we're talking about here is creating that sort of accountability, right? So, how am I accountable for my work, for what I'm doing, for how I'm working, regardless of the contract of whether I'm an employee or a contractor or a consultant or whatever it is. It's just that, it's accountability, and it goes down to my personal branding, to my expertise, to again, if you go to feedback, that's going to be important because it's going to be an important part of my portfolio, let's say, as I'm an independent consultant, right? So I think we're talking about how do we make people care about what they do and how they work with each other, and not just care about the cash necessarily. I mean, care about the cash, don't get me wrong, but care about that um, in the context of quality as well. Because, and that's why I'm saying it all goes down to culture, to creating that kind of culture and having everybody adopting your culture, because it doesn't work the other way around. There's this quote that I love from Peter Drucker is culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I think it eats it for lunch and dinner as well. Because no matter what strategic plans you have in place, if people are not aligned culturally wise, you're gonna have your strategy going bunkers at some point.
And I love how you say that. For someone like myself, for the last 5 years, I've been in many different companies. And there are companies that I thrived in, and there are companies I didn't thrive in. And usually what the conflict was my own values against how they were living, and I'm going to say the key word, living by their own company values, which created their culture. And so for me, where the struggle was sometimes was that I was trying to incorporate my values into it, and it became a conflict and very demotivating for someone like myself. Versus when I was in organizations, even if they had problems up here, our value system was very similar. And I asked this question most recently is, when you hire, regardless of who it is, do you talk about the company values and see if it aligns with that individual? And guess what my answer was that I got back? No, I don't. And you know what? In truth, I'm not sure what other manager does. That's a great start. Any of you that are hiring managers, is to start using that in your interview process. If you are already doing it, that's great. Comment, let us know how that works for you, and share your techniques and how you do it, so others that are watching our show today can get inspired and get ideas of how to interview better and match the value system and culture fit, because that's huge. Another thing for me when I was independent that I wanted to kind of add into is passion. And the tip that I'm actually going to share, I was in the middle of uploading it and I got to kind of redo my post. But here, I'll put the link to the post that I will have in this show on the LinkedIn feed. It's about where work is like a hobby. And when we talk about caring, especially if you're a contractor, I love Agile. And I actually still do love Agile. And I loved being a coach. And I still love coaching. Just it looks a little differently today. And I cared so much. The work that I did and the feedback that I got, that every time that I was in the situation or when I left the situation, I was focusing on personal improvement every minute. And that's probably why I have 20 million certifications and went to all these things. Every time I left, I was like, okay, now what do I do with what I just learned? And I'm going to go back to with everyone is opportunity. So how can both parties take this particular situation when it comes to leading, right, as an opportunity? So for me, if I'm an employee or if I'm a contractor, every time that I get feedback, it's an opportunity for me to be a better leader. Every time that a middle management, think about if you were connecting and talking and giving feedback and working with, regardless of an employee or a contractor, it's an opportunity for you as an individual to be a better mentor and coach and practice it more. It's opportunity. And I think that's huge.
It is huge. I mean, and especially if we see it that way, and I think we can, learning from what 2020 had to offer, I think we can start building on that. And I actually think we need to start building on that more because what we've seen happening so far, especially in large organizations, is like people dread feedback or they dread the employee reviews, and whenever they hear the word feedback, they cringe. It's like, "Ugh, okay," because it's not, we don't necessarily understand feedback as, I like to call it, healthy food for healthy relationships, right? And it has to be continuous and it has to be regular. And I have to let you know the good stuff as well as the bad stuff. I have to let you know what works and what doesn't work too.
Oh,
Because
I love
otherwise it's
this.
going to
Yeah.
be just negative, right? It can, whenever I'm going to, oh, I have some feedback to give you, I'm going to be like, "Ugh, I don't want to hear it."
I'm reading. Actually, I think this is the second time because I actually had to start over. I jumped to another book. I have a bad habit of sometimes jumping to another book that looks more interesting to me. I don't know if any of you guys have that problem. Well, I went back and I started to read over Positive Intelligence. And he talks a lot about the judger and your sage, right? The saboteurs, and then you have the sage. And one of the things I loved about what the chapter that I read last night before I went to bed, it helps me sleep better, and is that gifts. And when we start judging, he says he challenges people to think of 3 gifts that they get from that situation. And if we look at feedback, not only is the good things and the bad things, which there is a better structure, how to communicate with people. I learned in my NLP, he talks about the feedback sandwich. And it's what you're talking about is it's doing both. And it's almost like a dance. But for you as an individual, we can't help but judge ourselves. And we have all different types of saboteurs is my point. And challenge yourself. If you can move on and it doesn't bother you, great. You kind of moved on to a different level. But those of you that are swimming in it and you can't get past it, I've been there. I grew up with a highly critical mother. And so that is something that was a huge saboteur for me. And trying to get past, some of that. And I had to do some timeline techniques to kind of release that. and so think of 3 gifts, right? What are some wonderful gifts that you can get out of that conversation? What would that look like?
Yeah, that's
the person isn't doing feedback the greatest is my point. You can't change the way the person had that conversation with you, but you can change the way that you are taking it and reacting to it is my point.
Exactly. And that's great that you said that, because feedback is a dialogue, or it's supposed to be a dialogue, right? So feedback is not just somebody talking and letting you know something, and then what happens. Feedback only works as much as we make it work. And again, it's going to be up to me, the receiver, what I'm going to do with it. And I think also we've been using the sandwich technique for so long that it's so ingrained in our in our way of giving feedback, and I think it's so toxic because it does not. Why do I have to tell you something good only when I have something bad to communicate to you? Why is it that I cannot just let you know, well, I think you've had a wonderful idea today in the meeting. I loved it. And that's it. It stops there. It doesn't have to be that long. It doesn't have to be that complicated. And good feedback, positive feedback doesn't have to come before a negative piece of feedback that I'm giving you.
But think about this. And this is where I'll challenge this. In this situation, it was more of a Q&A. You're asking for the feedback. And so it's a part of the process. It's not like you were brought in a room and you didn't ask for it. So I agree with you when you say the give feedback whenever feedback is due, is what you're basically saying is the organic. Well, what if you asked for it? That's what I'm getting at. When you ask for it, it's when you're talking to someone, it's so much easier to just go the negative and be very corrective and critical about working with them. And that's where that, when we talk about the feedback sandwich, it's nice to know that you're looking at also the good things that can encourage someone to keep going and moving forward with what they're doing at the moment, right? I love that piece of it, but I agree 100% organic feedback, right? Versus I'm asking you for feedback, right? Which I highly encourage people to ask first before it's given. Is just give it. Like, why are we overthinking it? And you have a valid point. It's so toxic that we already think that feedback is being judging, and it always is a negative thing, where, you know, just saying a compliment, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because a lot of people find that complimenting, that it's kind of weird sometimes and it's like off. I've always felt if I like someone's hair, if I like what someone did, even if it was random and didn't make sense, I would even laugh and say, "Oh, this is random, but I just have to tell you." And I did it. I didn't care what the other person thought or other people thought if I'm giving a compliment, right?
Well, because again, we're not used to that. Like, we grew in such a culture of perfectionism, and what perfectionism does is whenever you talk about feedback, people think about criticism. They don't think about compliments. They don't think about me telling you what you've done well or how impressed I was or stuff like that. No, it means criticism and it means judgment. And that's why we've come to absolutely hate that word.
Well, you know what? Maybe we should start renaming it and say, I have a gift for you, regardless of what it is. Because even if it is good or if it's something constructive to help someone be a better person, isn't that a gift?
Exactly, because it's going to help.
I think I'm going to start using that. I have a gift for you. Look at that. See, it's like I'm even coming away with something myself today. So how many of you guys like that are watching our show, that the idea to start saying, instead of feedback, I have a gift for you, right? What do you guys think about that?
And I think this is totally related to our topic today. Don't get us wrong, because we were talking about feedback. But I think this is one great thing that great leaders do for their teams is saying feedback. Like, and anyone on the team. Like, and again, we're not talking about leadership in terms of hierarchy here. We're talking about leadership in terms of contribution. And also, to me, leadership is more related to legacy. So what do I leave behind? How can I help others? What are others around me going to get even when I'm not there, even after I'm gone?
And that's powerful. That's like so powerful. And everything that we talked about is related to leadership. And it doesn't matter. You could be taking this as a parent. You could be taking this how you deal with your best friend, your spouse, the person that is bagging your groceries. Like, think about every kind of situation. All of us are leaders. And what do we do to help inspire, elevate, and make our impression? And I say impression not in a success or narcissistic way, but impact, right? That's probably the better word, of what we do out there every day. That's good leadership. The person that helps the old lady with her bags, that's a leader. The person that opens the door and helps someone as they're pushing their cart in the grocery store, the person that does all those things is leadership. Or taking the time to rally other people to do something great for a charity. That's leadership. We never really think about all the little things that leadership is. And I remember having a conversation when I did the Young People Index with a young kid, and he didn't want to be a leader. And I asked him, why don't you want to be a leader? He said, well, I don't want to be responsible. And we continued the conversation, and he had a great idea. He's a game changer, by the way. Gotta love that, right? And he wanted to change a policy that was in the school. And he was wanting to do a petition. So we continued the conversation. And then I asked him again, what makes you think that's not a leader? And he looked at me puzzled. And he didn't know how to answer me. And I kind of left it at that, let it kind of sink in for a minute. And I said, well, that's an example of a type of leader. Would that interest you? And he just had this look on his face, right? And I think that is where, think about everything that we do, right? We're talking about organizations and what might have you, but the examples that we give out there in life and also career is profound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're used to the old model of leader who is the know-it-all, who is powerful, maybe even a little bit aggressive, or if not aggressive in any case, has no flaws, and they're not letting themselves be vulnerable in any way because they can't. They have to know it all, they have to do it all, and they have to be almighty and all powerful, right?
How lonely.
That is why it was so isolating and so lonely, right? And we're moving into this kind of new model of leadership that is more collaborative and that is encouraging and supportive,
Vulnerable.
and vulnerable in so many ways. And because how often have you heard people asking for help? Again, leaders who ask for help, no matter where you are. Again, we're not talking about your hierarchy here. We're talking about even if you're part of a team, right? And you're responsible for your bit of work on a project. Well, asking for help while working on that project. Am I gonna ask for help? That is vulnerable because that means I don't have the power, and that means I'm depending on how others are going to help me. I'm depending on what they're going to do. When I offer help, that's a powerful position because I have the power to give that help. And that's why it makes us feel good. We all know, right? We have this feel good whenever
right?
Yeah.
It's if you give more than you receive, right? Yeah. That is good for you. And I love you bringing up this subject because asking for help, the most successful people out there never try to do things alone. And if we look at history and you read the biographies of a lot of successful people in our lifetime, they never did things alone. It might appear that way, and we have this persona that way, but behind the scenes, there were always people, always. Now it's almost like the Wizard of Oz, and we took the curtain down.
Yeah.
And we're actually showing what it really is like now. And we don't have to quit lying to ourselves. Just be.
Yeah, I think also the whole social media development and everything that helped uncover some of the backstage work and what was going on. And I think as we are moving forward, we're going to start seeing more and more of that. But at the same time, there's always been leaders who've said, and I'm talking Steve Jobs or Richard Branson. They always reinforce this idea that your people come first. And that, again, you're hiring smart people to tell you what to do. You're not hiring smart people to tell them what to do. And that was the famous Steve Jobs quote.
You are right. The most leaders always wanted to surround themselves with people that were smarter than them.
Exactly. And they always recognize that power that people around you bring, and yes, they were as the formal leaders of the organization. Yes, they were responsible for creating that kind of culture where people can step in and take the lead whenever they feel they need to take the lead.
Yeah,
That's
no, this is great. I love this subject. This was like a juicy one, and we probably have some, more ideas of what to do in following. We just want to officially announce is that we have reduced we're doing once a week now on Wednesdays and doing at 10 o'clock. I actually forgot. Thank goodness I was on LinkedIn trying to upload my own post. but we figured maybe we'll get more people to watch now since I have less constraints. Woohoo! And what I do since I'm moving on to my next venture, talk about scary and leading. I'm learning how to lead just as a person a different way. So leading.
Talk about that. I mean, we have to let people know what's going on with you. So why is that? Come on, tell us.
So for 5 years, I was an independent consultant as an Agile coach. I loved Agile, and I still do, like I said, and I love coaching. What I found was there was a missing gap in my life to where when you're in Agile coaching, you're usually hired to do the practices. And I started to kind of think about, and there's, when I talk about willing and committed, it's very hard to coach with people that are not willing and committed to their own personal development. And in every engagement that I had, you either had a select group, like maybe only one person, or maybe you had a large group. It really depended on the culture. If it was a learning culture that they were big on personal development, I thrived in those, in truth, because you had a lot of people that were willing and committed because it was part of their norm. When I was in cultures that wasn't necessarily the norm, it was like a diamond in the rough. So I started realizing, long story short, is I liked working with individuals that truly want to solve something that they can't do themselves, and they want that help, and they really want to change and be the next better version of themselves, whatever it is. And I just loved working one-on-one, or at least with a select group of people that have a common need, and I was there to help them with. And that was so fulfilling. And so I asked myself, is Agile coaching and these Agile transformations going to give me it? Because I started feeling demotivated because, one, I didn't have choice of the contracts and the expectations that I was put in. And I kind of had to figure it out and kind of swim in the waters to make it okay. And I was like, what if I took all that back and started to control the people that I work with that truly want to change? And so here's where the leadership comes in. I have to learn how to step out in the world now and do my own business development. I have to step out in the world and really let now people that might not know me, what I'm about and what I can do and what can I be of service to help those out there. That's huge. I also have to step out now and be vulnerable and tell my stories about my own personal transformation. And I had a meltdown yesterday, and I was messaging you where this new thing, it was driving me bonkers. And I just had to let it go and go, you know what? It's not serving me today. And I moved on. Look it, I'm not you today. So it's, when it comes to being a leader, it's learning how to get past yourself. So I'm doing my own personal bubble. So imagine that, how hard that is. Now you're in a company. Mm-hmm. And you are responsible for more than just yourself. Holy shit.
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
Say it that way. This is why personal transformation is huge. You have to start with yourself because you have to get past you.
And you cannot, you cannot help others until you understand how you can manage yourself, and
It gets
until you know
beliefs.
exactly how are you going to encourage others on the team or others around you, even home. I mean, come on, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. How are you going to be supportive and encouraging and caring with others if you cannot offer this to you?
It's been so profound, and I'll be sharing my journey now on all of these things. If I and I'm not saying I would never work with organizations, that's definitely not. It's just going to look differently in the future. Because I really want to work with more of the people that are really bringing me in there for something very specific need, and they're committed and willing to they got skin in the game, right? Because they're at cause for the results. And what is going to be very different for me in how I serve and how I provide value is that I'm literally going through this process that I have never done in my entire life, by becoming an entrepreneur and figuring out what's wrong with me. And I say that what's wrong with me because I'm basically washing all of these limiting beliefs where there is nothing wrong with me and nothing holds me back, and I don't judge anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing.
And I love what you said, and I think that kind of summarizes everything that we've just said and talked about today, with you're at cause for the results, because that goes back to everything, to culture, to feedback, to picking yourself up, to self-care, accountability, asking for help. Everything is in here.
And
We're
you
always
do the same thing.
exactly. I mean,
We're in the
that
same boat. You know?
and no matter whether you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, business owner, team leader, whatever it is, or just part of a team right now, you're a cause for the results. And that is for each individual, is that is gonna be valid because each individual is a cause for their own results. It's and that's when and how we can stop a culture of blaming, and
Yeah.
we can create a culture of trust. That's it.
Where I, instead of agile coach, because you're usually, when you say agile and you're brought in for coaching, you're teaching practices, which is more of the tangible pieces. And I was like, you know what? I want to divide that out, and I'm really more about the people transformation. So I call myself a life coach now, because if I ever go back into organizations and help, I'm helping people learn how to be at cause for their own results, where that is going to speak volumes on how well your company is going to thrive. I'd rather help people with that. And I'm hired for that. Imagine that. I said that a lot, but you get my point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think especially in this kind of environment, this is what we need to do, is help people understand how everybody can contribute. And if we just look at that and shed a light on that, that's going to be super powerful. Okay, I think
every organization can use this.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the power, right? Because the risk otherwise is that you keep doing things the way you've done them before, and they're only going to work up to a point. And then people are going to be demotivated. People are going to be leaving, maybe. You won't know what to do anymore. You won't get any more creativity and innovation, which is absolutely crucial for flexibility and how you adapt to new circumstances and how you can come up with new things. So it's if you want, it's like how do you call that game? A domino effect,
Yeah.
right? And it starts, I think, the first piece there that has to be really, really stable is people.
And I love I'm going to put a plug of your company. It's all personal. And the reason why I say life coaching, because there is leadership coaching. There's that type of work where when I say life coaching, it's a space for anybody and anybody that is in the company, right? Contractor, employee, like it needs to be for anybody that is there, that is helping your business thrive, that life and work, they have a space to work through what they're going through. Because we don't know if it is a personal thing holding them back or it's a work thing. And we have to start separating them, because we as a human being, our distortions, right? All the million bits that we bring in and the stories that we tell in our head is personal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it all starts, any kind of development starts with you, with ourself. That's where you start. And that's absolutely the basics of emotional intelligence, right? You start with self-awareness. And that is what's more personal than that. Self-awareness and self-management. That's all personal. And that is going to reflect in everything you do at home or at work. It doesn't matter. It's how you do what you do that helps you see how you are on the inside and who you are on the inside. And all of these bits and pieces of action. So,
This is like a topic we can like talk forever. And we probably will extend this, what that probably starts to look like when we're combining, because for me in 2021, I would love to start seeing organizations when it comes to their business goals and strategies, that they're really starting to think about personal development as part of it, because we can find ways to probably measure that, I'm sure, right? But it's an expectation that people are working on it, and we also are helping them with it.
Yeah.
There's no reason why we can't tie it all together. There's none.
Yeah. And it's the only sustainable way to development, to real, holistic development, personal and professional, because they go together hand in hand. And by the way, actually, because we talked about a lot of personal stuff, I wanted to say that next Wednesday, we're going to talk about how to remove self-doubt to keep yourself and others motivated. And again, that's going to be a lot of imposter syndrome, or call it whatever I hate that phrase, but hey, I don't know why. It's just but it's true, and it's such an important part of how we sabotage ourselves and how that reflects on how we communicate and work and live with others around us. So
and I'm going to share a technique that I learned that will help you identify some of these distortions of what we call self-talk. And so you can start documenting. A lot of people don't understand what they are. They don't know what exactly they are. So I'll share something that you guys can take away next week on how to start figuring out what your triggers are, what types of distortions that you are self-talking, so you can start working through that. Now, so our news time is Wednesdays at 10 a.m. So hopefully all of you will join us. If not, you'll get the playback on Roxana's news feed. I will add the posts, like I talked about, my tip for that I'm sharing. I have 5 tips going on this week on my profile. If you're not following me, connect with me. I know that we broadcast through Roxana's profile, but if you are somebody that is not following me or connecting with me, I invite you to do so.
Yes, and also because Veronica is so generous and she's offering free 45-minute strategy sessions for you. So connect with her, because that's going to bring you a lot of clarity. So tell us more about the strategy session.
This is my gift. And what it is it's a 45-minute coaching session to allow you to figure out what you're trying to achieve at the moment. What is your current situation? And at least you have something to leave from in our conversation. If it ends up going beyond that, that's great. If not, at least I am able to part you with a little more clarity and some kind of plan that you can start doing the next day. So go ahead and schedule some time with me if you're interested in having a 45 free strategy session. It's my gift for everyone.
Talking about gifts, I love it. I love it. We start the year with presents and gifts, and I love it. Okay, so for me, it's the lead, right? I've been talking about it, and I'm so excited that people start joining. So it's lead for legacy. See, this is because this is what I believe about leadership. Leadership is about legacy. So what do you want to leave behind you, no matter where you are, but especially if you are a team manager or a small business owner who needs to develop their people and management and leadership skills. This is the global online program for management and leadership development. We have online courses, group coaching and brainstorming and assessments and Q&As and all of the good stuff that help you develop the skills that take you forward, that help you feel fulfilled and successful. And because it all started with a dream, right? We all wanted to have a dream career, be a dream boss, build a dream team. That's why I created this program, so that you can start or continue building your dream and becoming a dream boss and building your dream team. So I'll put the link in the description of this video. And you can
all of you should take advantage of it. You have all these, expensive executive coaches out there that are doing more, the top echelon, levels of these companies, and you're getting the same. And also, I want to point out, you're getting a community. There's nothing more powerful than group coaching, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's actually better than one-on-one coaching if you want the truth.
Exactly. And it's just that regular continuous learning that makes it so powerful. You don't just go one day or 1 week a year and then that's it. Okay, so I think we're done for today. I mean, we should wrap anyway.
Even though I was late, it was fun. You know what? I'm flowing. I am flowing and loving it. But, we will see you guys next week. And thank you for joining us. And if you have any tips on how you can be a leader, no matter what, share it with us. We'd love to hear. And if you have any topics or anything of interest, also let us know. We have our YouTube channel, which all our videos are there and stored on all the platforms. They're always there on the feeds, but sometimes it's a little hard to find them. So you always will find our collection with all of my beautiful thumbnails. I like them.
They are beautiful.
I'm a dork. I love them. I love them. And you can find all of them in there. So definitely use YouTube as a library of all of our shows.
Awesome. Okay. Have a great week, everybody, and see you next Wednesday.